Riverview is a historic burial ground with deep ties to the local Parkersburg community and the broader Appalachian region. The cemetery is home to many monuments and headstones from historical figures, especially political and historical, including the relatives of Confederate General Stonewall Jackson.
So there are a number of notable burials in Riverview Cemetery. There are descendants of General Stonewall Jackson, as well as Peter Godwin Van Winkle, who not only served as the first state senator of West Virginia, but also as a descendant of the legendary Rip Van Winkle-tail. Additionally, Captain George Deming, he was a famous sea captain from Connecticut, and he was a descendant of Miles Standish directly, the founder of Plymouth.
The cemetery that reflects West Virginia history is in Parkersburg, whose residents call it the birthplace of West Virginia. The city sits on the Ohio River and serves as the Union's very first invasion point into the Confederate States. The state of West Virginia gained statehood by remaining loyal to the Union. Many Civil War-era citizens are buried in the cemetery, setting the tone for our historical and cultural vibe.
There's a variety of things associated with the cemetery on the paranormal side. So of course there are your usual specters. Notably, the Jackson grave, considered the Weeping Woman, is known as one of the most haunted locations in Parkersburg.
The Weeping Woman statue is a focal point in the Riverview Cemetery. It's a headstone with a woman seemingly weeping over a headstone that stretches and watches over the plots of Stonewall Jackson family descendants. Many people think the figure is a woman named Lily Irene Jackson, a woman who died a spinster, a descendant of the Jackson family. There are many tales about the Weeping Woman pacing around and mourning the lost lives during the Civil War, her hands changing positions, or even her granting wishes to women who are pure-hearted.
So it's said that if you go leave an offering on her grave, that she will grant a wish, and this has happened successfully for a lot of different people. But not just that, people have seen multiple times on nights of the full moon what appears to be the gravestone actually getting up and moving around the cemetery. People have reported a woman in a long white veil walking around the grounds of the cemetery, and she appears to be crying, which is where the legend of the Weeping Woman comes into play.
But if you're not true of heart, she is said to get a little mischievous and rip your shirt or pull your hair. Her connection, as well as many of his other relatives, has had the potential to spin many tales due to the connections with the Civil War.
There have been multiple reports throughout the years of not only the Weeping Woman apparition, but shadow figures. To this day, if you enter the cemetery after dark, you're most likely to hear some footsteps approaching you, nobody behind it, or see something out of the corner of your eye when you're the only person there. But it also hosts a variety of folklore from the Irish and the Scottish descendants that moved here. There have been a high amount of orbs photographed at Riverview, which is quite rare because it can be hard to even get one orb on camera. People have also reported hearing disembodied voices as well as just seeing apparitions around the graveyard. Appalachia is very old land. This area specifically is 450 million years old, so you can imagine there's a lot we don't understand. In addition to Irish folklore of the Black Dog, it connects into the legend of the Banshee, which comes from Ireland as well. And this is usually considered an ill omen, so she will appear in times of impending doom for the family or to bring bad news. Strangely enough, kind of similar to Mothman.
The practices of walks at dusk and night, a time thought to be the threshold between worlds of living and dead, paranormal investigations, grave offerings such as coins or flowers or photos as gifts to the spirits, are often meant to blend local superstition, ghost hunting, and respectful remembrance, reflecting the complex relationship between the living and the dead in Appalachian culture.
There's always something strange that happens when I lead a tour by the cemetery. It seems to be specifically by the captain's grave that shadow figures happen frequently, or I'll be telling a story and my guests will turn around like they're looking behind me and they swear they see somebody in there. To me, that's evidence that something deeper is really going on there. It's a good way of showcasing the stranger history of the area, and it's also a good way to understand how a lot of the local legends came into play. I've always been drawn to stranger places, paranormal places, but the main part of investigating the paranormal is protecting these historically significant places. So it has an allure naturally anyway, as does the city of Parkersburg. Everybody agrees that it's really significant, whether that's historically or paranormally, people have different views, but everybody certainly agrees that it is a hallmark of Parkersburg.